Last month, for the first time since 1983, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC, passed new guidelines to clarify the landmark Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978. The decision has wide-ranging ramifications for businesses moving forward. Joining us this morning to talk all about this is an attorney and partner at Fisher Phillips, Ed Harold. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, we should start by saying you're not a woman. You haven't been pregnant. However, you have some experience with this. You have some kiddos of your own.
Yes, I have 3 children, 17, 15, and 13, 2 boys and a girl.
And a lot's changed since they were little.
It is.
Some very wide-ranging changes here. Really some good things for moms, some big wins. Let's talk first about this initial Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978. Let's go all the way back. And what did that do?
The Pregnancy Discrimination Act was part of Title VII to make clear that pregnancy was a form of gender discrimination. But what it really did was it said, you cannot discriminate against a woman on account of the fact she is pregnant, and you cannot treat pregnancy differently in the workplace than you treat other disabilities. In other words, so in some pregnancies, in some situations, women may have limitations put upon them by their doctors that they don't want them doing certain things. And you couldn't say, well, because you're pregnant, we're not going to help you, when you would have helped a worker who had those limitations that weren't on account of pregnancy.
Okay. Now, with these new changes, what's updated here?
The main focus is the incorporation of some concepts of the Americans with Disabilities Act into the Pregnancy Discrimination Act through these regulations. The EEOC has come forward and said that in light of the changes to the Americans with Disabilities Act that made the concept of disability broader, that certain medical conditions related to pregnancy can be disabilities under the ADA, and they then have to be accommodated under the ADA, reasonably accommodated. So that's one big change. And then another shift is sort of they have expanded some of the concepts within the law related to, pre-pregnancy, being able to be pregnant, not being able to be pregnant, being sterile, things like that, to make clear that those are protected as well.
Okay. And as we look at this is not just something that women who are pregnant need to pay attention to. This is very important for employers as well, because they're going to have to make these accommodations in some of these changes. Right.
This is extremely important for employers to understand, because it's certainly, if you are an employer who is conservative in how you conduct your business and do not want to get on the wrong side of the EEOC, you want to follow their guidance in how you treat your employees. And this definitely creates a higher burden on employers to accommodate pregnant women who have limitations on account of their pregnancies in the workplace than we've previously had.
And when you say a higher burden, they are fairly simple things, but these are things that need to be done. Let's talk about some specifics. For example, if a woman works maybe on a factory line and cannot be standing up for long periods of time due to pregnancy, an employer may have to provide a stool, something like that. Let's talk about some more specifics.
There's a concept in the accommodation process of reasonableness, and reasonableness certainly is both being effective and being safe. So you have to, in each of the accommodation, it's very fact-intensive related to the individual. The ADA has always been that way. And so when you're incorporating this, so if you're on a factory floor and you could do the job sitting down with a stool and it doesn't impair the productivity, it doesn't impair the efficiency or the safety, most importantly, then that might be an accommodation an employer would have to provide. If it could not be done that way, or if it impaired safety particularly, then they would not have to provide that accommodation. What the EEOC then looks to is whether or not you have light duty work for employees, whether you could transfer that person to a vacant position for the duration of the limitation to allow them to do something else and not necessarily have to go on a leave of absence.
So just because he can't do that specific job, there should still be other options available.
If there are. I mean, you don't have to create a new job. But if you treat, again, going back to, and this is what the EEOC is saying, if you do create light duty work for employees who have disabilities, physical or disabilities that are not pregnancy related, then you have to provide the same sort of job creation or light duty creation for employees who have pregnancy related limitations. That's one of the very big steps of the points of their guidance.
Now, this also covers leave as well, taking either sick time, taking FMLA time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Certainly. If you are an employer with 50 or more employees and the pregnant employee has been there for a year and worked 1,250 hours, they're protected by the Family Medical Leave Act for up to 12 weeks if they have conditions caused by the pregnancy that keep them out of work. And certainly there are many different conditions that may cause a doctor to say you have to stay in bed for the next 3 months. And you can take your FMLA leave. There's also some Louisiana law protection for that as well. Of course, the problem becomes, what do you do when that 12 weeks of FMLA leave is over? It is certainly difficult for employers to have somebody out of work for 12 weeks and then give birth, and they obviously can't come back right after giving birth, and it's going to be another 6 or 8 weeks before they come back. And that's where you're going to have to make one of those assessments, whether or not this is an accommodation that is reasonable under the circumstances, and it can be very fact intensive. For some employers, it might not be a problem at all. For other employers, it might really interfere with their ability to be effective and to get the work done that the job is there for.
Okay. So it's really important to do your research on this, know the information, know the changes. Finally, after women have their babies, and I just had a baby myself, it can be very difficult if you're nursing to incorporate pumping into your professional life, and employers do now need to accommodate for women who have to pump at work.
Absolutely. That was part of the Affordable Care Act. It created an obligation on the part of employers to provide a space for women to express breast milk at the workplace, a private space where they could do that if it was available. Now, most workplaces it is. There may be a strange warehouse or something where if there is nothing available, they wouldn't be required to do it. But it is, and they also need to have a policy in their handbook is required by the Affordable Care Act on their lactation policy and how it works.
Okay. Well, a lot to talk about here. It's some pretty detailed stuff, but all in all, some very positive changes for women. And thank you so much for coming on. We sure appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
And for more information regarding the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and those new guidelines for pregnant women and moms, just log on to our